Good whatever time of the day it is, you have to be listening. This is the P&A Podcast Express with a special edition interview with director Steve Moon, director of Out of the Fight, a very interesting movie. Little out of character type of episode for us. A little more serious subject matter than every episode we've ever done, but very important nonetheless, and we hope you enjoy it. We're going to start the episode here in progress. We had a little bit of technical difficulty at the very beginning with the audio, with Steve's cell phone calling in, but it evened out, and we still have a huge chunk of the interview to bring you. So we're going to bring that to you now. Interview with director Steve Moon from Out of the Fight, and we'll start that here in progress.
And I feel like you also covered that very well in the movie, and I think that couldn't have been easy to address or broach too, but it happens. That's real life, and I think that's one of the nice things about your movie Out of the Fight. What it does is you really don't sugarcoat anything.
No, we tried to keep it real. The way we shot it also, and I'm so glad you said that, because so many movies, like Hollywood, I'm doing the finger quotes, but Hollywood wants you to Hollywoodize it so it'll sell. And so it'll get more people in seats so that they make a lot of money, the distributors make a lot of money.
Yep.
And I told them I couldn't do it. But we had distributors on the front end that were looking at the trailer and stuff as we were filming, or the sizzle reel, the teaser, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, well, I think it needs this, and I think it needs that. And I'm like, no, this movie is real. So we shot it in a guerrilla film style, which is a lot of handheld stuff, because it draws you in. If you ever saw the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke,
yes, of course.
The style that's what kind of influenced my style, because if you put the camera behind a character, you are introducing to the audience what that character sees the minute he sees it. So you're seeing it for the first time just like he's seeing it. So when Emily walks into the support group, the camera's behind her. That's the first time she's ever been in that room. So what does she see? We see it as she sees it. So we looked at a lot of YouTube videos. The opening sequence is basically a replica of what happened. If you type in on YouTube, Marja, Afghanistan, Marines, Afghanistan Marines, it'll pull up about a 5-minute video that is that was the inspiration of my opening scene, because you've got two guys, I don't want to give too much away, but you've got two soldiers that are walking and just talking to each other like you and I are talking to each other. Yep. I think the first line is, if you dropped your weapon, what an idiot. They're not talking about, hey, Hollywood, look over there, somebody's shooting at us. We're not doing any of that. We are just bringing it to you as if, you were there with your old video camera following your best friend. So we did a lot of that, and we hope that brings a lot of things to home, because you never really think about a style. You think, okay, here's the director of photography, he's got a camera, let's just put the camera here and show them what we're doing. We want to bring people into this so that you become a part of it as well as the characters.
Well, and you mentioned that you had combat veterans on set. Did you get input from them and get feedback from them on the realism that you brought into the film and some of their input on how it was to be in that situation? I mean, because let's face it, a lot of people, that's not a common thing to run into with people that they've been in combat. I mean, it was probably much more common years ago when you had a lot of the World War II veterans and Korean War veterans, but now combat's a little bit different. So to have a combat veteran's input on that had to be, very important on that, I would think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because there's many ways to answer that question. One, I want to preface that when we wrote the script, we sent it to, let's call it the powers that be. I don't know if it was a marketing department or what it is, but it's the PR people of the Army, the Marines, and the Navy. We didn't show it to the Air Force because we really didn't think it was applicable. No offense to the Air Force, but you hear more about the boots on the ground. So we sent the script to them, and they all approved. They were all like, "This is great. This is real. This is good. If you can get this movie into the audience, we approve of this script." So that's where that started. But the combat veterans, we had veterans also that were behind the scenes when we were writing the script. But on the day that we were shooting all those, to answer your question, 10 minutes later, I have a hernia. So that's part of the story. I have a hernia, and it had somehow descended, or whatever the word is, and I couldn't walk that day. I was in so much pain. I was crippled. I could not walk. So I was literally laying down, looking at Video Village, and Video Village, in layman's terms, are the monitors that we watch that are connected to the cameras. Come on in. That are connected to the cameras, so that I could do it. So my director of photography, like I said, we've been working together for 20 years. He knew exactly how I wanted the scene to look, so he was directing that. But here's the thing. We had all the combat veterans. We were rehearsing everything, and I told them this. I'm not directing this. Joe's only directing for placement of camera and placement of actors or talent. We call them talent. But you guys are just doing what you would normally do, and we're just going to let Joe and Sterling shoot it. So he's like, that's great. So everything you saw out there was pretty much what they did or talked about in combat. So when you hear, check your right, check your guns, things like that, that's everything that they would say. That is not scripted. That is all real. And I think when they saw, we call it playback, when they saw playback, we only had to do at most 2 takes of every combat scene because they nailed it. I mean, that's the life that they led. So those were surprisingly easy to shoot. Not surprisingly, they were hard to shoot, mentally fatiguing to shoot.
Their muscle memory and training all had kicked in at that point. They knew what to do to make it look real because that was the situation they were in for so long. But like you said, just the emotional aspect of having to go back to that point.
Yeah, and again, we don't do the Hollywood thing because I've seen so many movies where somebody gets shot and they're like, oh, let's get to him and blah, 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 and oh, he's bleeding out and all this. And they literally, I was like, what do you do? Because Jason, the character, and this is not going to give anything away, but Jason, the actor, as the actor's character's, the actor's Randy, Jason's the character, he has to get shot. And they said, well, what happens when he gets shot? They just yell, hey, I'm down, and somebody goes to grab him, and they take him somewhere safe. And everybody else to fight. And it's just amazing. We don't think about it. If you and I were at a grocery store and you got shot, I would be in such a panic and I wouldn't know what to do. But these guys are prepared for it. He gets shot, okay, we just drag him off and keep fighting. And we can't relate to that.
No. The mental toughness that they have to have. I mean, like you said, if you were in a grocery store and if I was in there with you and you got shot, I'm probably over by the Twinkies.
Yeah.
Because,
I'm curled in the fetal position.
Yeah, I'm looking for a comfort food and a safe place to sit. And, those guys let their training kick in and, they do what needs to happen to help anybody that they can, but at the same time stay alive themselves. And it just has to be such a pull in all directions when things like that are going on.
And there's no fear because, that's an overstatement. Of course there's fear, but there's no fear in doing the right thing because they are going to be the ones that will die protecting the person they love, and it's going to be the person to the right or the person to the left of them. And that's what they did, and it was so beautifully, it was just magic just to watch it all happen. It's just like watching this dance unfold. And then you start thinking, wow, they really did that because these are combat veterans. This really happened to them. And then the thing about Out of the Fight, everybody always asks me about the title, Out of the Fight. There's a line in the movie that phrase is given. And what it really means is out of the fight doesn't mean you're out of the fight on the field. It doesn't mean you're out of the fight mentally where you take your own life. What it means is you are out of the fight of the struggle. Mm-hmm. And that's what people, nobody's really had a problem with the title, but they don't understand the depth of the title. The out of the fight doesn't mean I'm done. Out of the fight doesn't mean I'm ready to put a gun in my mouth. Out of the fight means I am no longer fighting those demons, and now I am truly out of the fight because I've been delivered from that. And there's never that one delivery. There's never that, that magic pill or that magic potion that says, okay, this is a Hollywood ending. He's now happy for the rest of his life.
No.
It just shows that he knows what his demons, what his problems, what hurt him and what's tearing him up, what's tearing his family up, and he recognizes that. And he goes out and he's like, okay, I'm not out of the fight yet. I'm going to go do this. And then that's all I'm going to say about that because the ending is so beautifully done. My DP and my second unit team went out there and did that because that was our last day of filming. So when you watch the ending, that's Joe Walker all the way. Joe Walker did every bit of that because I was filming the scene with Barry and Barry's girlfriend at the time because we were going to lose that house that I was telling you that was vandalized.
Mm-hmm.
That was the last day that we... After that, they were bulldozing the house because the school system had purchased that house so that they could bulldoze it and knock it over to make a parking lot for the middle school. So I'm like, Joe, we got to get... Because we don't have this tomorrow.
We got to go.
Came back.
So we've been, Adam and I have been involved a little bit in some filming projects, so we get it. You've got to go because sometimes, as you said, things will change, lighting will change, locations will change. You've got to get out there and go when you can go.
There's a Dollar General behind your
Dollar
the
General
house.
springing up, yeah. So,
and then when he came back and he showed us the playback, we were just all wow. I'm glad that God works the way He does because I probably wouldn't have done what He did. Mm-hmm. And he would have said, no, Steve, do it this way, and then we would have run out of daylight and would have been done.
Right.
But the ending, people always ask, why didn't you do this or why? Because it's not real. You can't give that magic potion solution to something like this.
And that's one of the things I read in the feedback, and I appreciate you explaining it, was people are like, well, it wasn't Hollywood enough, or it wasn't the ending, or some of the scenes, lagged on. I'm like, but that's real life, though. That's the poignant part of real life. Life isn't always going to be Hollywood and excitement and everything all happening at once. Life is the mundane.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Well, and everything that's in there for your listeners, everything that you see in there is true. Everything that you have seen is a combination. We narrowed it down to 50. There were 50 real stories that were so similar that were like, this is kind of the meat. These 50 families out of the 200 are almost identical stories. Even though the 200 were still close, the 50 were so identical. It's like, wow, y'all the same family? Because, I've heard this a million times. The only thing that's not true to life in the story is Jason, the main character, and Barry, the one that he meets at the support group, never really met in real life.
Okay.
But outside of that, everything's true. What Barry went through and his girlfriend, what they went through happened. Everything else happened. It's true to life.
Well, I have 3 close friends who've been in, over in the Middle East in different combat situations. And all of the accounts that I've gotten, this is a very, very close, probably the closest recount of what they've said they've experienced, not only in being there, but in coming back,
right?
And trying to get back to, hey, I've got kids here that I've got to deal with, and I've got, I got to go in to a school board meeting and not kill somebody, and it's just not. So I mean, just the true to life of, when I guess what the title meant to me, and it was when you say out of the fight, it's like I've got to get out of that fight. I've got to let that part of me go, and it's such a hard part for most people to let go because it's such an emotional thing that's going to stick with you forever, and to have to come back and deal with, okay, well, I have to supply the orange wedges at the soccer meet.
Right.
Kind of seems a little bit, just, I don't want to say a little bit meaningless, but it's like, wow.
Different perspective of that.
I've went, so I'm out of that fight now, and I've got to find a way to get back to a normalcy.
Exactly, because if you think about it, no matter what we go through, there is, in an oddly ironic, I guess that's the right word, situation or way, there's strength and comfort almost in pain because you're used to it, and to get out of that, you have to change that mindset. And to change that mindset means, wow, I have to go through more anxiety, more pain, more unfamiliarity to get back what I had. So sometimes, like with me, when I was in my depression, I would be sleeping 18-hour days. My now wife would go to work. I'd wake up with her. As soon as she leaves, I go to sleep, and I sleep until she gets home, and I hear her slam the door, and I get up and unload the dishwasher and pretend that, nothing's going on.
Right.
And it wasn't because I was lazy by any means, but to get out of that means I have to find a new strength. Yeah. And that's hard when the strength that you had before wasn't strong enough to prevent you from being where you are at that moment.
I'm right there with you, Steve. I've been in that exact place. I, too, have battled a lot of that depression. I'm a big advocate for therapy and talking to someone, seeking someone out to just share your experience with and stories. It can mean a lot just to talk, just to have a conversation.
And that's the scene in the movie where Chris Mullinax's character is Officer Randy Mitchell. He's a police detective now in the movie, and he pulls Randy. Randy is drinking in a parking lot. So he goes to check him out, puts him in the car, and he says, look, you don't have to go to these meetings. Even that you don't even have to talk. Sometimes all you have to do is listening, because listening is therapy just like talking is.
Yep.
Well, it's amazing how powerful just knowing that there's other people. One of the friends I mentioned that was in combat, he mentioned that he went to some meetings and didn't really have a whole lot of input, but he said it was amazing just to know that there's other people that go through the same struggles that I did, and he goes, that was enough for me to be able to kind of overcome all of that, just to know that there is, other people, same things, they're experiencing the same issues that I have, because he mentioned you feel very isolated when you come home. He couldn't talk to me because I'd never been in those situations. So just knowing that there were other people that felt the same things that he did was very powerful. So, hopefully anybody that's been in those situations that has had the difficulties that go along with being a combat veteran. Hopefully, if anybody hears this, don't be afraid to seek out people who have had similar experiences, because you'll find that you go through a lot of the same things.
You're not feeling as different. You're not as different as you feel than some people that have been in similar situations.
Well, this is one of my little pet peeves that I post on Facebook all the time, is I believe in prayer, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus Christ, I believe in all of that. Mm-hmm. And here's what my pet peeve is I love it when people say I'm praying for you, but you know what? Sometimes you're the answer to prayer. So sometimes just the fact Jason can walk into a meeting and think, you know what, there's no reason for me to go to this. My wife wants me to go, okay, screw it, whatever, I'm going to go. But then to meet a character like Barry, then all of a sudden Jason finds himself again, because maybe his therapy is helping someone else in pain. Because a lot of times, like with me with mine, my therapy was in, okay, I'm going to coach community basketball, and I'm going to do all those things for others so that they're not feeling the way I'm feeling. So sometimes the best therapy is just doing something for someone else. Be that answer to prayer. Don't just say, hey, buddy, I'm praying for you. I hope you get through this. Get him through it. And I think that is Jason makes his breakthrough. And again, I don't want to give anything away, but I think Jason makes his breakthrough when he finds that servant's heart again. And once he finds that, he knows where to place that.
I think so too. So what is next for Steve Moon? Do you have anything you want to promote now? What are you working on? Anything you want to talk about other on that avenue?
Well, let's see. I can say this. I just recently sold a movie called Ocean overseas. When I say sold, that just means distributors picked it up, so I'm happy about that. That's one that Joe Walker and I also did together. We kind of actually, Ocean is what we did right after Out of the Fight. We're like, you know what? Mm-hmm. Let's don't even write any. Burned out. We can't write. Let's just go get a couple of actresses that we know, a couple of actors we know. Let's go get us a boat, and let's go make us a movie on the ocean and call it Ocean. And with no script, we'll just make it up as we go along. And I guess in Scandinavia, all of those countries over there, in that part of the world, like American bikini-clad women that are stranded. So that's sold.
It's not a tough formula, huh?
So we found a formula, and then I did a recent film with Michael Pere. You can remember him from Streets of Fire. Mm-hmm. He was Eddie and Eddie Cruisers. We did a film with him called 3.3 Miles that we're I got to go back into the editing suite and just finish, polishing it up a little bit. That's there. I'm in that's the next one that's being picked up. I'm in Mississippi and Louisiana right now. I can't really talk about that show because it's not mine. I'm just executive in charge of production, making sure that they make their days and all on it. But I do have one that if you do follow Out of the Fight on Facebook, please send me a friend request. Yep. Because I have a little, I want to call it a reel, but it's like just this little minute-and-a-half long video. There's, in real life, there's what's called a heater, Heater, heater. I call the movie Heaters. A heater is a 12 to 13-year-old girl that is about to be sold within hours, if not minutes, into the sex trade industry that the task forces across the country are watching online.
Okay.
Because they're watching all the pedophiles that are in this, and it's global right now. We've got task force in Illinois that I was working with. We're working with Interpol, just writing the script. And what's amazing is, okay, you've got the task force that is watching the conversation between like a 25 or 30-year-old, usually it's 25, 28-year-old white male that is, I don't want to get into the TikTok because that's part of it also, but they get into conversations with these young girls that are looking to be famous, and they say, hey, meet me at the bar, meet me at the club, and, I make movies, or, I'm an agent, or I know agents, and then they go meet them, and then as soon as they meet them, they abduct them.
Right.
And the first night, they turn 5 to 10 tricks. They're drugged up, they're alcoholed up, they're everything, and if they are not caught before they get sold, they're either dead by 19 or never found by 19. So anytime you see girls, no, go ahead.
No, I was actually just reading an article that was talking about that, and that's the project I figured you would talk about with human trafficking and combating that. So interesting, very, very interesting. Go ahead.
Weird how timing is everything. I call it God's timing because Judy Norton sent me a text today, and she helped me write it, and she's in the movie, and she said, are you free to talk right now? So I called her, and we talked about here's where we were, so ironic the day that I'm on this podcast. But I want to, so send me a friend request, because what I would love to do, crowdfunding rarely works. But I would love to get enough funds so that we can get that movie made, so that people can see it. It's going to be realistic, just like Out of the Fight. It's going to be real. We're showing what happens. I mean, we're showing that, and hey, if we don't get her in 30 minutes, she's already on the way. She's in her car because we see movement on the tracking device on her phone. That we got to go get to this park right now, or she's gone. And so people are blinded by it. I'll get into TikTok now. TikTok, I don't care if you're a conspiracy theorist or not. TikTok funds human trafficking. The money goes into paying people to traffic young kids, and I call them kids because 12, 13, you're a kid.
Right.
And I just tell people all the time, please don't, oh, you're a conspiracy person. No, I'm working with a task force that has all the data that we've seen. So it's just, you got to be careful. Parents, if you're listening to this, please don't let your kids monitor what they're doing, because it is real, it's going on, and it is probably America's biggest tragedy, other than all the other corruption that's going on.
Well, and I can definitely say, as my kids are both grown now. Luckily, they never got into that whole fad. I've got two boys. They're both out of high school, and they're not very good looking, so they probably wouldn't be trafficked anyways. But
okay.
But they, I was just always very thankful that they didn't, get into any of that. We're in a pretty secluded area that it's not probably as popular as other areas are. But I do know that we actually have one of the largest trafficking borders in the U.S. within an hour of us here.
Right.
I actually got to be part of, years ago, I worked in banking of all industries, and I got to be part of a juvenile sex trafficking bust. And it was amazing to watch, like, the Border Patrol and the ATF and all these agencies come together. This guy was a pretty large trafficker, and he was along the Canadian-U.S. border. And basically, these kids would be transferred across to Canada, where it was easier to move them because obviously they're far away from their parents, even though they're only minutes away. They're across the river. But it was much easier to move them from there to various countries than it was to do it from the U.S. And so they just, at the time, it was a really amazing thing to watch that all happen, and how kind of find out how it was happening and how it worked. And so it's one of those scenarios that it's
amazing the lengths they go through to make this happen. Right.
Exactly.
Oh no, yes, it's ridiculous. It's such a there's such a chain, so it's almost military how it works. It's so precise on how that all comes together.
Yeah, it's extremely, and just to know how many people were involved. I mean, the guy that we busted where I worked at, and we did it through, the technology. portion, he kind of thought he was safe in a bank, not being tracked by anything. Like, okay, I'm inside of a bank, so I'm not going to be tracked by anything. And he was kind of the opposite. He was tracked by everything. You know, we had keystroke tracking, the whole deal.
Yeah, well, with the technology that's out there, where anything that you type is now being recorded. Again, not conspiracy person, but it's being recorded. They identify, so they can literally they have search words that are keywords that come up. They don't have to search for them; they'll pop up, and that's part of the way that they find the conversations that are going on between bad guy and innocent girl. And in America, I'll tell you this: in America, in the States, Atlanta is the biggest hub for human trafficking so far. Chicago's pretty bad. Even I think Nebraska has like 800 missing girls a month through trafficking, and that's Nebraska. But the Super Bowl weekend is the biggest in America human trafficking weekend. There are NFL players that they have that courts that they have that they know that this is what's going on. These are NFL players, and the courts aren't hearing the cases. Judges refuse to hear the cases. Prosecutors can't even bring up cases in front of judges because it's all money. It's money, money, money. And the I-20 corridor from Atlanta through Birmingham to Louisiana, all of that is just constantly trafficked. And you have so many people. We live in a world now where, you know, everything you say that's true is now a conspiracy theory. And people are turning a blind eye. It's just like with the whole Maxwell case. When did we ever see the Maxwell trial? We didn't see the Maxwell trial, but guess what? We saw weeks and weeks and weeks, if it was that long, of the little Rittenhouse kid that carried the gun and shot the 2 or 3 people that he killed during the riot. Okay, that's fine. I want to see him get his justice, but you know what? There's bigger things than stupid little white kid shooting people at the riot. And you know, that doesn't mean I'm justifying what he did, but you've got Maxwell that has everybody that was flown to whatever island that was called, but we don't see any of that. Well, there's no TVs allowed, there's no reporters allowed, and it's like we turn a blind eye when it comes to things that we don't want to hear.
Yeah, that was crazy to me because I was anxious to see that, you know, just to kind of see, all right, well, who's going to get brought up, you know, and it just didn't happen. You know, you still know very, very little about that case. And, but it just goes to show you how well connected some of these people are that get involved in this. And it's a little bit scary. I mean, I'm to a point where I'm very, very glad that my kids are old and not very good looking. So that they're not, you know, not a target for this sort of thing. I mean, my oldest son's a college wrestler, and my other one just plays games. So, you know, they're a very little target.
Yeah, I have daughters. I have a 24-year-old stepdaughter who lives back with us. I have a 24-year-old daughter with a 5-year-old granddaughter and a 1-year-old. Well, I don't even know how I haven't met him yet. That's a whole different story. But right. I want to. Carly, to pieces. I wish that we could. I wish you would patch things up with me, Carly. If you're listening, I love you. Anyhow, and then Abby was 21, my other daughter. She's at Troy State. Well, I'm not going to say where she's in college right now. But yeah, you have 3 blonde daughters. You know, Dad's overprotective already. I'm glad that they are the age they are because they're past that age. At 21 years old, you're not going to be sold. But 12 and 13 years old, right. That's what these NFL players and everybody else that's discussing across the country want. And you can't do anything. It seems like the bigger you are in society, the more money you make, the higher your prestige is. You're untouchable. I accidentally run over a cat in a town that says, oh, our policy since 1863 is you can't kill cats. Great. I'm going to spend 10 years in jail for killing a cat. Right. But you've got rapes going on that you know because you have, although they have cameras or anything, but you have evidence of what they're doing and nothing is done about it. And until we do something about it, it's just going to keep happening. So, yeah, that's my next project. Is heaters. That took a lot out of me. Then I have another project that I'm doing on my phone with some local actors in Birmingham so that I can help them build their demo reels and things like that. So the next big one for me outside of heaters is Bastogne, and it is about the Battle of Bastogne that took place in 1944 December in Bastogne, France. So we have partial funding for that. in March we're going to start shooting a little bit of it, and then do the rest of it probably the end of the year when we have some good snowfall. And I think New Mexico might be where we're shooting that, but I have no problems coming up your way.
I was going to say, we just got about 4 inches of snow today, as a matter of fact. So there we go. Everybody's slipping and sliding.
If you have anything that looks like the Ardennes Forest where you are, send me pictures, and I will come scout.
You know what? We might just do that, Steve. I just also went on Facebook to the page for Out of the Fight. I just typed in Out of the Fight movie, and it came up, and I liked it, and on my personal Facebook page. And you can also find it there. Take a look at it. Where can you also find the movie again, Steve? You can find it on Amazon, you said, and what other avenues can you view Out of the Fight through?
It's Amazon Prime. It's iTunes. It's either Vudu or Hulu. It might be on both at this point. iTunes, there's like 5 or 6. I think you can get it through like your PlayStation, if that's still active. But you can pretty much type it in if you have a smart TV and just type in Out of the Fight. It will come up. If you've liked it and you're friends with me, like I said, share that with everybody.
Yep.
And because and I will say this, we have all 55. I thought there were 50, but there are 55 veterans administrations across the United States, and all 55 have one marketing, again, for lack of a better term, one marketing person that's kind of over all that.
Mm-hmm.
I did an interview with them months ago, and all of the VAs want to use this film for the family, so they can say, hey, this is we want you guys to watch it. We think it'll help. And then I was supposed to, right before COVID happened, or right around when COVID happened, I was supposed to have an event in New York City where the Gary Sinise Foundation was having an event, and the film was going to open that event, but it never happened. But it's making noise, and people know about the 200 families that are out there. There was one from Jacksonville, Florida, that I think the football team or one of the professional teams around that area put the kid's picture on the big screen, and they had a moment for them. There's a mom that lost 2 of her sons in Santa Clarita, California, and 2 years back to back, she lost both of her sons. Both of them were combat veterans. Lost them both to suicide, and it was, I think, the San Diego Chargers did a big halftime event with her son's pictures and everything on the big screen. So people know about what's going on. It's talked about. The big thing now that I want to end with is it's not taboo anymore.
Right.
Nobody wants this to be taboo. You come out with it. Originally, the military didn't want you talking about it. It shows weakness, or, it's something new. We don't want to discuss it, and we'll sweep it under the rug. Now, people are encouraged to talk about it. The families, even the victims before they commit suicide, are like, we're going to discuss this. We're going to erase the taboo. So now it's just as common as talking about anything else.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because I think that is a huge point as to, where we've come as a society. You don't have to face any of this on your own. You went and fought for everyone. And I think everyone is behind our combat veterans and them getting the help that they need and providing the resources that they need to become whole again when they come back. So I think you did a great job with the movie. I appreciate the subject matter and the candor of which you presented it, and I think you just did a wonderful job. So,
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
really, really happy to promote this. We're a comedy podcast, but we really both believe pretty strongly about this. That there needs to be some more things like this that are brought to light, the real side of the situation, and not just the, they're a little weird because they went to combat, so they're quiet or anything like that. No, they need to get the help that they need. And so I hope anybody
or
listening,
help them even
or help or just reach out and help, and so hopefully that will help to encourage that healing
and facilitate
with our combat veterans.
Exactly, and the follow-up story on the woman that lost both of her sons. She just recently lost her third. I don't think he was military, but what I have read is I believe he also took his own life. So this mom out in California, so if there's any California listeners, just know that there's a mom in Santa Clarita, California, and if you want to reach out to her, I'm pretty sure everybody in that town knows who she is. So, don't be to look her up. I won't give the name, obviously, but, you can reach out to the news or the newspaper, or if there's a social media site or a Facebook site for Santa Clarita, California. Try to just be there. That's the main thing. Just be there. Be the answer to prayer.
Even if it's a few kind words or words of encouragement, absolutely. It can mean a difference.
Awesome. Well, I'm honored, guys.
Thank you. Steve Moon has joined us, director, screenwriter of Out of the Fight. You can find it, as we said, on Amazon Prime, Hulu, Vudu, all those outlets. Just search for it. You can just type it in your Google search bar, and lots of things come up about it. Great resource, a great movie, well put together. Thank you for joining us, Steve. This has been awesome. Thank you for all your time. You've given us almost 45 minutes. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we don't edit a lot. We don't edit a lot. We don't like to edit. So this will probably air as its own episode.
Right.
A little off-brand for us because, like I say, we do a lot of comedy improv on the podcast, but we both feel pretty strongly that this is important information to get out there, and we really like the way you presented it.
Awesome. Again, I'm honored. I'd love to be on with you guys again, talk about whatever. We can talk about hockey because I love hockey down here in the South.
You're talking
Alabama.
my language now. Let's do it, Steve. Anytime. We'd love to have you on. You're always welcome on our podcast.
Awesome. I would say go Penguins, but since their goalie left and went to Vegas, I'm now a Vegas fan.
Understood.
Where's my goalie? I love him.
He's a great guy, so absolutely.
All right, Steve. Well, thank you very much. We'll send you a link, let you know exactly when this is going to air, so you can jump in and listen to it. And we appreciate your time.
Yes.
And we look forward to having you back.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back, and maybe we'll work together on some projects in the future. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.